Hey guys, welcome to Create Make Do. Today we're doing a draw with me, and today's subject was Island in the Sky. So I decided to include my sketching process this time because last time I didn't, and I feel like the sketching process is, to me when I watch YouTube drawing videos, the sketching process is really interesting. So I thought I would try recording that. It's a little bit weird because I really like to bend over whatever I'm drawing when I'm penciling, more than I do when I'm inking or painting. So making sure to keep my head out of the frame was a little bit fun. Anyway, my concept for this was essentially one of those, island in the sky mini environments. And I really wanted to do something with like water and a tree and like the water going over the edge, as you can see in the initial sketch. Something I would do if I did this again that I would say as a tip is to, if your island is going to have a point like mine does, I would find the center of your piece of paper and align it to that, because mine is slightly off center. And while it doesn't annoy me too much, because in the final piece the tree is quite heavily on one side, so it kind of balances, it is something that I've noticed afterward as slightly more annoying. So this is where I start going a little bit nuts with roots. I have always really liked drawing trees. I've drawn them a lot in children's books I've illustrated, and they're just fun because you can just kind of go hog wild. And I think this is so here is a tip from me. Something that I think is really helpful is reference pictures, but obviously if you can't find a perfect reference picture of what you're drawing, something that you can do that I recommend artists to do, and sometimes people don't realize is a thing you can do, is to essentially draw from like 10 different pieces of 10 different pictures as references. So in this case, I'm basically just using Pinterest, going through lots and lots of pictures of, I don't remember what it says, something crazy tree roots or something. I'm sure you can read it, but since I'm watching a calibration of it, when I record this, I can't actually see what, it's not in focus. But anyway, so something I will do is I'll find a picture like this one, and I'll find like a branch or two that I think are really cool looking, and so then I will reference those as I'm drawing. I think I'm doing that right now with some of the upper branches in the, like where I'm pointing with my pencil, because I think I was trying to talk when I was doing this, but I decided to do a voiceover. Let's see if it works. Anyway, as you can see, I'm pointing to areas, and then I'm kind of showing you where I'm putting them in the picture. I end up changing some of these branches because they weren't quite going where I wanted them to, because I wanted the drawing to essentially not be too heavy on the right side of the tree. And this is something, as you get better with composition, you'll be able to sort of eyeball, like if a piece is working, how is your eye drawn around the piece. I won't say this piece is perfect because it was more of an exercise, but I'd like to think that the way the eye kind of goes is it goes from the tree, and then you go the water, you fall down the water, you see the droplet, it kind of, hopefully, the idea is that it scoops you back up and around, but I may not have succeeded perfectly well with that. Anyway, this is when I start going a little bit hog wild with the roots. I really like trees next to lakes where they have, as you can see in this picture of like Old Man Willow, where like one of the roots is almost like it's almost like a little leg sticking out. I really like that idea, and I ended up playing around with like where to put it. I really wanted to put it on the left side, but then I felt it was it looked better on the right, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, Pinterest is great for reference photos if you haven't used it before. As you can see, I'm using it for like, what do roots look like when they're sort of grabbing the ground, but also eating it. I've always really liked nature, but also, especially when nature starts to take over. I mean, in this case, nature is taking over nature, but that thing where, you'll see old buildings and they're just kind of almost husks that have become like, what's it called? That thing that happens. remember. Anyway, let's pretend I know what I'm talking about. You know when you have like a stick next to a tree to make sure it grows straight? That type of thing, except it's like a building and the tree's eating it. I was originally going to put birds in the sky, but in the end I decided against it. I thought it was just... I like the idea of there is no life but tree. No life but tree. And this is... yeah. I wanted the foliage to mostly be done with color. But... oh! Yeah, and I was referencing... there was this really great Y bend in one of these trees. Now something I would do if I did this again was I would probably slightly change the way I did the... wow, this footage is really speeding up. Oh well. Okay, so now we're about to get into inking. So for this I used a Pigma Micron at 0.8 and 0.3, and they're extremely old. I actually picked up new ones this week, which I was really excited about, including a pink one, which I've never seen before. I mean, it's not totally pink, but it's kind of pink. And pink is one of my favorite colors, so that was exciting. And they also had a deal at the store where if you bought 12, you got them for the cost of 10, which I probably don't need 12 microns, but you know, I wanted to experiment, and part of it is that the Pigma microns don't bleed when you paint on them like some of my other pens do. I did a full test of all of my inking pens that I found in my drawer, and they're not a lot of them. So here you can see I've put down basic lines, and then something I like to do is, you know, thicken up some of the accent areas where I want there to be more weight with like a 0.1, or not a 0.1, that would be way too small, a 1.0. I won't say that I am perfect at it, but I like to think it adds quite a bit of depth to the piece. And as you see, something I like to do with trees is I like to essentially create, it's almost like these little bark areas where it's a little bark line that goes all the way down, because I feel like it kind of shows texture. And now we're erasing. And now we're painting. This is Reeves gouache color set. I got it, I think, in college. I will say I am not the best at painting, so part of this whole series is about me kind of trying to, you know, push myself with color and push myself with painting and all of that. But I've been watching a lot of Kasey Golden's videos about, and watching kind of how she paints, although she's using watercolor, which is actually different from gouache. And, oh, and something, if you watched my last video, you may have noticed I cleaned out my palette. And because there was a bunch of, I didn't know what all the colors were, where they were, because like sometimes I'd be mixing what I thought was green and suddenly there's like orange underneath and I'm like, what is happening? And so that was an issue. And so I'd also apparently used acrylic white at some point when using this palette, and so it had stuck in like the yellow container, and as you can see, the sort of terrible white fogginess that's now on half of it is because I had to use acetone to get it off. And if you're not aware, acetone eats plastic, so because I was like, how am I gonna get this off? I know, I'll use acetone. That'll work. It'll melt sort of the acrylic plastic. And I forgot that it would literally melt the acrylic plastic of the palette. So that was me being super smart. But I have set down new colors, which I was excited about. I've tried to organize them in a way where I won't turn them into a giant mess. And this, so back to the drawing. This is where I kind of went a little bit, I wanted vines or something to make it look more nature-y. And then at some point I realized I really didn't like how it looked just with the color, because it was, you know, the illustration is mostly, it's black outlines, and then we've got these things without black outlines. It just looks like it's out of keeping. I waffled a lot on the overall color of the underside. In my initial idea for it, I wanted it to be like it is on the left side right now, which is kind of this like blue with these like veins coming out, but it did not really work with the whole like vines are taking over. I probably should have gone, instead of making them rocks on that side, just gone like full weird blue stuff. And this is where I started adding the darker colors to the vines to try and give it that black outline to make it look a little bit more in keeping with the rest of the style. If I had decided to do it earlier, I probably would have, you know, included them in the line work, but I didn't. So live and learn. That is something about gouache, is you can use white like acrylic, but it always looks a little funky if you've used all your other colors like watercolor. Adding white to watercolor always looks a little funny. I don't know why. I think it's because it ends up looking more milky than like the white of the paper, so your whites don't match. I think that's why. I don't actually know for certain, because painting is not my gift. But I'm hoping it might become a gift that I can work on. Keep working on new stuff every day, people. Make sure you grow. I feel like a Hallmark card. Jesus. Anyway. At this point, I think I'm just messing with the vines to make them look less terrible. In the end, it is a drawing I'm happy with, but it's also not something that I particularly feel is a, how would you say it, a reflection of like my artistic style or who I am as an artist. I do think it's really important, you know, especially, well, for all artists, but especially younger artists, to, you know, push themselves to try different styles, try different things, try different materials. You never know what you're gonna like until you do. I ended up finding that I adore metalwork in college because I was forced to take a sculpture class. After I had been scared out of sculpture by an art teacher in high school. Don't let art teachers destroy your spirit. But like I said, so part of my impetus for this was trying to, you know, stretch myself and get better at things that I don't generally do. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video and maybe it gave you some ideas about your own work, or, you know, what to do, what not to do. Hopefully I included some tips. Let me know what you found helpful or not helpful down in the comments section below. That'd be cool. And thanks for watching.